It's not 100% obvious what you guys need help with, but we're going to talk about some different kind of archetypes for players. We're going to build on Phil Hellmuth's overall and change it a little bit and go more into detail how you beat these players. Because Phil Hellmuth didn't really expound on that too much. We're going to go over a few different types of players. I'm thinking to build out a more extensive animal list. You got 4 animals. We got the goldfish, the loose passive player. That's most players, by the way. Even regulars tend to have those tendencies, but aren't like 100% loose passive. They're like not very beta tigers. They're like the B grade tigers. They're like a little bite, but it's not much. So we're gonna go into who they are, what they think, to get in their heads a little bit. We'll go over a few basic exploits. I'll add some more, so there's a bunch. I made a longer list, which I can show you guys. Yeah, a little bit about their tendencies, a mantra of sorts to remind you how their ways of being, which is useful, and then a live drill so you feel the hunt and you leave with the weapons. It's not just a note-taking seminar here. Anyone wants to roar, but most of your enemies probably won't maybe thrown off guard by that. Even it's too much for me. All right, so this passive. Plays lots of hands pre-flop. That's the biggest thing. Like telltale sign of a fish, right? They play loads of hands. Or they like call lots of hands on the flop and like don't really raise that much. They can call lots of like ace high type things and then end up folding them. Yeah, just playing too loose, especially on earlier streets, is really the key thing and not making enough moves. Limps or calls, everything pre. Yeah, that can be a case. It could also be not rebetting that much. That can be another thing. Just not putting in much aggression overall. That's the general thing. I would say check calls, check folds a lot. By the way, sometimes even it is appropriate to be loose passive. If you're in the big blind, for example, you have to be loose passive with a lot of hands. But most of the time, yeah, you're not gonna want to have that tendency. And thanks, yeah, check a call, okay, and isn't really thinking too much about dictating the action or what that should look like. That's probably the overarching mentality of these guys is they're just like letting you have your way. They're very passive on the whole. Be a really good way to think of it, but also not thinking too deeply about the strategy. That's usually a possibility. One exploit is you can value bet really thin, especially if you can read how good their hands are. This is more true if they're on the stationary side, but obviously you want to be going for thin value here against many of these guys, especially when they're so wide. I mean, this kind of like screw themselves over with large pre-flop ranges anyway. I would also say, a bit related to value betting thin, to bet a bit of a linear range or range that you're going to follow up with a lot with more barrels, that kind of thing, and not so many one and done type bluffs. Being loose passive is actually good against you if you use lots of one and done type bluffs. So if you like bet the flop and give up, that's not very good against a loose passive player. That's good against a weak tight player, but against loose passive, you want to barrel a turn. So that's quite important. Or you want to bluff somewhere is a bit the idea, or value bet them somewhere if they're on the stationary side. If they're really balanced, that's when they evolve into a tiger. With the calls and the defending against your barrels and stuff. That's the tiger territory. All right, so bluffable on later street because he calls too many hands on earlier streets. Actually, bluffing these guys is pretty good. It's one of the things that I strongly suggest doing. It's pretty easy exercise to try to bluff loose passive players, and this is kind of an introduction of sorts to bluffing or a way to get used to bluffing more because they respond really predictably, to be honest, a lot of the time anyway. Most of them are like kind of logical. Like some of them have like kind of consistent ways of thinking about things. You don't usually need to bluff that big. You can just like a really common one is the delay C bet and just follow up on the river. That works great against loose passes. Yeah, it's great if they're not super stationary, which is almost all of them. It's one of the best bluffs you can run against these guys. It just works so well. So the delay bet and the follow up on the river works against a lot of players. It definitely works against loose passes. Key thing. ISO raise the 3-bet wide. Yeah, that's another thing. You want to isolate with your stronger ranges and 3-bet to play more pots against the person who's playing loads of hands. That's pretty simple. That's one of the biggest things too. You're going to play lots of hands against a fish. Quite important. Yeah, almost never. If they raise, run the hell away. If they bet, be afraid. They do bluff sometimes, but it's usually not in the creative and aggressive territory. The better they are, the more this does look creative and aggressive, but it's rare. It's on the rare end. I'm sure you guys playing like 2-5 live or whatever. You're playing like 1-2. I wouldn't explain too many loose passive fish to run too many crazy bluffs. Yeah, check call. That's it's a common. That's one of the favorite plays. The agreeable play. All right, so loose passive plays too many hands and never fights back. Milk them slow, pays the fair. Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. A big thing is with your bluffs, you want to follow up, and that there's actually lots of value there. That's one of the biggest things. Preflop punish his looseness, raise 3-bet wide. That's gonna get you lots of money right there. Play weighted towards valuable on later streets. That's true. The only exception with this post flop I want to add is you don't want to bluff them off top pair too much. You want to bluff them off medium pair and below. Again, great introduction to bluffing because that just works great, and that's a lot of all you need to beat a lot of these guys. Fast playing, he's not going to bet for you. Yeah, that's another thing. You don't want to like trap them too much. Trapping's really on the whole not that good if like you're going to miss value basically. At least if you trap on the whole, you want to have an opportunity to get the value on the whole. Now against fish, you really don't like trapping because they're not going to bet later. Like the whole point of trapping is like getting them to put money into the pot. That's what we're going to do against the monkey, not against the fish, right? So against a monkey specifically, trapping's good. Against the tiger a little bit, but you have to be a bit smart about it. It's mostly against a monkey who piles money in when they're not supposed to. But fish, it's not good at all. That's really important. All right, so we got a fish. They're the loose passive player, and we raised pre-flop. It's gone check. They've called. It's gone check on the flop. Now the turn's a 2. What do you guys think you're supposed to do? Does anyone know what we're supposed to do here?
Polar?
Not really, but it's not necessarily bad. Anyway, we're at the polar point. We got a piece of our hand's not good. So what do you think we should do here?
With his loose passive check, we've got 6 high.
That would be true against a calling station, which can be a kind of fish. But let's pretend he's just a typical loose passive player, like a typical one.
We talked about the delay c-bet double
Bell. Yeah, the delay c-bet. Okay, this is a bit of a tricky one because wanted to see how closely you guys are paying attention. In this one, we've got a wide range. It's also very weak a lot of the time, and this bluff is just highly effective if we bet and to follow up on like pretty much any river. We can follow up on like almost any river. We can even follow up on a queen, but it's much worse on a queen. It's wildly better to follow up on like a 3 or something. So we can follow up on like 90% of rivers. So actually, this bluff is really great because they just got a steaming pile of crap. And remember, again, they call and then they fold a lot. So you have to bet the turn. Pretty much any size is fine, but I prefer 1/3. And that's also GTO, actually. And then just some kind of follow-up on the river. So this is a little bit of a test. Now, what are we going to do if we have queen 10?
Probably fill value bet paper thin, like it says.
Yep, that's right. Good job. Yeah, I mean, with the queen 10, you actually could make a mistake against some people. Like a good player is going to check a king a lot here because you just have to, and it's the button versus the big blind, and the button's got the range advantage. But against the fish, they're likely to be a little bit more polar. They're likely to have wider range, and hence they shouldn't have. So your queen 10 goes up in value, and you can bet and bet river as well. And that's fine against a lot of players. Mix up the positions a little bit, and it's too thin. But this one depends a little bit more on how the opponent actually plays, and if they're going to station you pretty hard with queen 10. But if they're a big station, yeah, you really want to go thin with queen 10. It's a bit on the rare side, but yeah, the more you know, the better you can make plays like that. Actually, the 6-4 offsuit play is more reliably plus EV. Is the funny thing for this file.
If you happen to play some live poker, you got to know what the rake is. You got to know what realistic win rates are. You got to know this kind of stuff. Speaking of which, on the Jungleverse, we provide many resources to help many of you up-and-coming players in order to avoid many pitfalls that many people play. Also to avoid getting cheating. We provide some details of what to look out for. We have a map of what the best online sites are to play at and why, and what kind of games you're looking for. If you want to try your luck and try to strike it rich, playing tournaments, why not? The math's a bit against you. We have the resources for that too.